ahead and get started. This is the September 24th meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. It is 3:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have a consent agenda that includes the minutes of the August 27th Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the September 3rd Planning Committee meeting, the September 10th Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and financial statements. And I don't know whether we need to pull them out as separate, but you wanted to at least say some items on C and D.
If I may, if you would pull C and D for comment and then remove them after we're done, I would appreciate it.
But do you want a separate action on those, or can you just address them?
Since it's on the consent agenda, I would prefer it if you'd pull them, please.
That's fine. Okay, so we're just going to vote on A and B, the minutes and the financial statements, if I had a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comment or questions about the minutes or the financial statements?
Do we want to put the next meeting date on there as well?
The next meeting date is October 22nd. We'll put that on there as well. Thank you. Thank you. So is there any other comment or question on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, so the list of payments for August 2013, item C.
Thank you, and I appreciate you pulling them for a brief comment. This is the list of 13 pages of checks that are written and a report drawn from our PeopleSoft system. There are a couple of items here. One of them is actually redundant to D, but on C there are a couple items that are, I think, worth noting. If you go to page 10 of the PeopleSoft report, you'll see a payment to Biosolids Management Group, BMG, who is our new lime residual contractor, for $90,000. This is on page 10, about halfway down. I believe during the discussions of approval of contract, we talked about BMG would get from us an advance payment for mobilization, and then they will credit 10%, I believe is the number, in subsequent payments that we would owe them off of the $90,000 that essentially is an advance. Just wanted you to be aware of it. It's completely consistent with the contract that you approved and with our discussions, but it is a large amount out there. I do want to say Mike is here, and Gary, our engineering and our water production staffs have worked very hard at this unusual transition of 10 years plus of contracting from one provider switching to another. Rick has been very helpful in providing us legal counsel on a number of difficult items that are transitional or tailing, involving this 10-year arrangement and storage, and payments that have been made and how they all reconcile and square up, and then just the logistics of having on September 1st BMG come into our Fluor plant, take many loads a day with another contractor stepping to the side for the first time they have in a decade or more. Very tough kind of logistics, but we've come out of that very well, but not without a lot of work from Rick, from Gary and his staff, and from Mike and his staff. Just a very important transition for us. Again, we're very pleased by the transition and our arrangement with BMG, Biosolids Management Group, which is actively engaged in marketing the lime residuals already with co-ops. So there's some interesting changes that have already occurred, but not without the work and hard work of a number of folks in here, as well as our maintenance staff, as an example, from water production, who are out there working with the contractors on a regular basis. They've been great in that transition, so appreciate that very much. The other item that I wanted to pull while we were on this is something, again, that I'll talk about in just a second in item D, but it's on page 12 of your report. About 3/4 of the way down, you'll see a payment for $180,603.01 to its master single payment vendor, which is our code word sort of for refunds, customer refund. This is our payment to American Freight for a missed billing circumstance. And if I may, I'll just go directly to D. You have two memos, one of them involving an $80,000 payment to OMG, I believe, or Hallett Materials. Their operating name is Hallett Materials, but I believe Old Castle or OMG is the actual payee of the $80,000. In 2005, this board approved a movement forward with a booster station in Pleasant Hill. That booster station and the construction of an elevated tower involved, among other things, the acquisition of some land. This $80,000 is payment for the acquisition of land for that booster station. So my approval of this essentially was your delegation of 5 years ago to allow that to happen. What you're going to see in item 3D, which will require your direct approval, is a payment of about $110,000, as I recall, for some grading to begin the process now that the real estate has been acquired. But two rather unusual payments, $185,000 to a customer, roughly half of which is for overbilling on the water side, a little more than half of it for overbilling on the sewer side. As you know, we're the agents for collection and for billing for many different utilities. In this case, this is an unincorporated Polk County, so we are billing not only for waterworks water, but for sewer services associated with our metering. The metering claim on the sewer side may or may not be an insurable event where Polk County can receive some reimbursement back from their insurance carrier. That's being worked through, but roughly $85,000 of this is being paid by us for overbilling on the water side. And I know at the Finance and Audit Committee level, Amy spoke with a number of you about the history associated with the overbilling. This is a compound meter in a rather exceptional circumstance. We would certainly hope that we have measures to keep this from happening again. But it was a situation where the customer did not bring it to our attention. We discovered it and have certainly run it to the ground. And again, with Rick's help, come up with a reasonable payment of refund to them that releases us from further claims associated with the overbilling. Can I answer any questions any of you may have on either the real estate purchase over the overbilling? And I know Amy will be, if not delighted, available to be able to bail me out.
The overbilling had to do with a complicated meter that maybe wasn't working correctly?
Yeah, let me try it. Can I try it, Amy? You tell me if I've got it wrong. A compound meter essentially has a large volume meter and then a smaller volume meter for dual use facilities. It may be a facility that has both an industrial kind of use and then a commercial use that's far smaller. The general sequencing for billing is 1, 10s, 100s, 1000s, 10,000s. Part of the metering problem here included essentially 2 10s. We skipped 1s, so we had a situation where the amount billed was a factor of 10 times greater on the small side, as I recall. You can probably correct me if I'm wrong on that, Amy, than on the large side. So we essentially billed them 10 times what they should have been for a lengthy period of time.
That's correct.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything salient on that one? But a difficult situation.
Yeah.
We found it. We ran it to ground. We went to the customer. We explained what the situation was. Of course, we're very appreciative of their cooperation in working this through because realistically, this went on for a significant number of years, and the record keeping and the process of trying to come up with a negotiated and acceptable solution to this, and then to deal with Polk County, who we were acting on their stead, is obviously a pretty difficult circumstance. Polk County, incidentally, is great to work with in a number of different facets in our business, and Bob Rice and his staff in Polk County were very good to work with here, but it's a situation that we would hope not to repeat. I cannot honestly tell you that under no circumstances will this repeat, because a year ago we would have never thought this situation would exist, but we're certainly on the alert to these kinds of meter malfunctions.
But there's nothing there to indicate that this is being repeated. I mean, as far as we know, this is a isolated incident.
That's correct.
It's not a problem with this particular meter.
No, the brand of meter or the type of meter. There was a calibration issue, in our view, a mechanical issue with this that was very real. Often in our business, we can come up with reports, exception reports we call them, but basically outliers that come to us In this situation, unfortunately, because of the length of time in which it had been misbilled, we had no baseline to view this as an outlier. So it was really a difficult circumstance, and that's why I have to be a little bit qualified in telling you that it can't happen again.
We just haven't had any reason to believe that.
We would have no reason to believe that this particular type of meter or this particular type of use would trigger an error like this. But I'm confident that we'll continue to exercise due diligence and trying to get in a situation where I have to explain to you why we're refunding $200,000 to a customer. That is an awkward explanation for any of us.
Absolutely.
Believe me.
Just to support what Bill's saying, we did talk about it in finance. We did talk about, are there any others? And then behind all your PeopleSoft information, kind of in a different place for a normal notebook, there's a memo that Amy did write to Bill. So it gives a lot of the detail.
Oh, okay.
I missed that the first time.
And I apologize. Yes, that
But
would be
it's-
after
that
the
also-
PeopleSoft report. In item 1D, there are two memos there, one from Kyle Danley about the real estate issue that we talked about, and then also from Amy dated September 18th on this issue of overbilling. But helpful, I think, for your understanding and the measures we've taken, as she says, going forward in her memo.
Any other questions or thoughts on those two items? So I would need a motion to move item 1C and 1D, the list of payments, and these two expenditures.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Passes. This is an opportunity now for members of the public to address us on items that may not be on our agenda. If there's anybody here that would like to say a few words, now is your time. Seeing none, we'll move on to the first item in number 3, the temporary supplement to adoption annex for Xenia providing water to Grimes. This is, there is a recommended action. I will, if you'd like to explain it, then I'll entertain a
certainly do
motion.
it very briefly. And again, at the Finance and Audit meeting, this was discussed only very briefly, but the scenario is this. The City of Grimes, which is not a wholesale or a retail customer of Des Moines Waterworks, one of the few suburbs that is not, has run into a crisis. They have an existing well that, because of both demand and the drought and their own growth, is essentially incapable of meeting the demands of the City of Grimes. They have instituted water rationing, water control mechanisms, but are having to purchase additional water. Xenia has been a provider for the City of Grimes for some period of time. As you know, Xenia is a purchase capacity customer of Des Moines Waterworks. We are recommending to you an amendment in our agreement with Xenia that essentially allows them, for the consumption for the City of Grimes for a period of 11 months, to step aside from the purchase capacity ceiling and to separately meter and sell at the wholesale with storage level, which is $3.05 a thousand, the same basic rate that Des Moines residents pay for the City of Grimes. This would be what I would term an accommodation to both Xenia and to the City of Grimes, but we are certainly looking for a longer-term solution that would begin in September of next year. We have been engaged in a number of discussions with Grimes, and there are probably several of you who are familiar with that. We were disappointed, and some others were disappointed in the future in our dealings with Grimes, that they chose a privatizer and chose to sink a new well as opposed to purchase from us or from another one of our suburban communities in a wheeling arrangement. Unfortunately, those decisions now have come to a point where they are confident, regretting their series of decisions, having to move to an emergency method for providing water. We believe this is a great short-term accommodation that also is consistent with our business interests. At the $3.05 per thousand, that's a significant issue for us also, but we would look to a longer-term solution that may involve the City of Urbandale, that may involve the City of Johnston, and perhaps still involve Xenia, but allowing Xenia to step away from their purchase capacity threshold or ceiling, I should say more accurately, will not occur after September 1 of next year, and was frankly made at my strong recommendation to allow Grimes to move forward with some of the unique development problems they're in for the next year, and hopefully position them in a way that's more acceptable in terms of buying water either directly from us or from one of our suburban communities who we produce for. Amy, another one that you've been heavily involved in, anything that you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I might add is that the agreement that is before you is not yet considered final. So the action that you would be taking would be pending approval by our legal counsel of the final language.
So with that explanation, I'm looking, and there's a recommended action here. I'm looking for a motion along these lines. A motion to recommend the board approve and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the supplement number 2 to adoption annex between Des Moines Waterworks and Xenia Rural Water District, subject to approval and final language by the Des Moines Waterworks legal counsel. If there is such a motion.
So moved.
Is it a second?
Second.
Any questions or?
The other thing that I thought was helpful that you shared with us at Finance was where the current connections are. And if you wouldn't mind sharing that with everyone, because we couldn't make a direct connection today, and I thought that was
absolutely, and I'm sorry, that is a material point that I left off, and Amy and Gary at the very least, well, probably a number of folks in here, Ted and Mike are probably very familiar with the geography here better than me. The Xenia ability to serve is about 300 feet away. The city of Urbandale and the city of Johnston are significantly more distant away. So Xenia is the logical short-term source. In my view, they are not the logical long-term source, but really to accommodate this emergency and the proximity, the construction costs associated with a connection of 300 feet versus 3,000 feet, we're trying to be as accommodating as we can, but thanks to the distance is an issue here.
And then I do have a question. Because we're selling it to Xenia, there's probably nothing we can do, but I would hate for Grimes to be gouged at an additional add-on fee. Do we know at what rate they're going to turn around and sell this water to the folks in Grimes?
I don't know the answer to that, but the reality is I'm confident Grimes knows of our arrangement with Xenia, so the baseline is established if that makes sense.
That's what I wanted to know.
Anything else on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? That passes. Now, what I'd like to do next is, it's that time of year. Bill Stowe has been our general manager and CEO for a year, believe it or not, and so it's time for us to do his performance evaluation, and I'd like to do this in 2 parts. First, give the board some opportunity to do this evaluation in public, and I would mention that it is an employee's right to have such an evaluation conducted during a closed session. Bill's had that opportunity. I think he's waiving that, but you have one more chance to ask for that closed session if you'd like it.
My preference is to have public comment and board comment in a way that our employees and our ratepayers can hear it directly from you.
Which I fully appreciate. I mean, we've all demonstrated our interest in that, so we'll do that. So I'll do this in 2 parts. One, allow the board to have some opportunity to make comments and have a discussion, and then the next item, I'm making some recommendations to Mr. Stowe's contract that we can discuss. But this first part is just an opportunity to provide some of your thoughts. So.
And if I may, Graham, just to square up one additional piece of this, I have had an opportunity to meet with each of you individually to get a sense of what each of you believe I can do more effectively in the upcoming year to serve the utility. And I appreciate that. I think these discussions are often relatively difficult and awkward, but I found in each and every one of those conversations great assistance, so I appreciate that. And thank you for your time in agreeing to meet with me individually, and certainly appreciate your consideration of 3A and 3B today.
Maybe I'll start down at your end if you have anything you'd like to.
Because I've been on the shortest tenure, 7.
You're the freshest face.
You know, obviously I think one of the things I talked to Bill about is having met him through the media, like a lot of folks in Des Moines had prior to meeting him in person, in conjunction with meeting all the staff here. I really enjoy the professionalism I see here. I enjoy the communication, and I think part of that, obviously, it's been going on for some time too, but, leadership can take different directions, and I'm hearing a lot of positive things, and I like the direction things are going. I think that, when we have these meetings, the information that we get, having it, we kind of discussed having that, the timeliness of it, and there are little things we all have that are kind of, gosh, do I need all this paper, or do I need, so those are my personal things, but just from the get-go, thinking about, well, I might like statutes, I might like this, what's going to help me to stay better informed. I've appreciated those things. I do like the directions that we're taking and taking care of the business that we have here, looking at a number of issues, the nearly $1 million cost of the nitrate cleanup, and informing the general public. I think those are good things that help us, and in conjunction with what we're doing with the park, and keeping people informed, and Bill and I talked about making sure that as we do that, the general public sometimes doesn't get all the details, and sometimes it gets wildly conflated with something else that's going on, that there's a business case for us, for the park changes, and the water, and how the water flows through, and making sure people understand the relationship that we have and why the community's located here. I think Bill's doing a great leadership job in the media on those issues, and look forward to more.
Great, thank you. Leslie?
I think that the first year, I really feel like he's done an outstanding job. He's got something done on most of the concerns that I had from last year and more. I know that HR has been streamlined, and we've saved some money there. He led us through the changes to our pension fund, which was a very emotional and difficult situation for everyone. And, but we felt that that really needed to be done to help ensure the long-term financial health of the fund and of the waterworks. And that was very difficult, and it honestly went pretty well. I don't think we ended up losing any employees over that, and I was kind of concerned about it. That was very hard. I was pleased, and I may not have the details of this right, but when the union contract, is it wages and benefits? What had we been negotiating every year? And we went to
It was a wage and Ron certainly can correct me if I've got this wrong. We had a wage reopener last year, but through our discussions with AFSCME leadership, essentially extended the current agreement and did some interim bargaining on a number of outstanding issues for 3 years. So
yeah, so that was
we took a wage reopener and turned it into a 3-year extension.
Right, I was thrilled with that, because no one wants to sit down and go over this stuff. I mean, it can be contentious. It's like, picking the scab off every year or something. It's just a lot better, I think, to get those things longer term just for everyone's comfort. So I was very happy about that. I'm pleased. The budget process is a lot easier for us to understand now. I'm very happy about that. I'm excited we're moving forward with the park plan, because I think, there are changes to be done there that are going to help us with water production, and not to mention just, make better use probably of the 1,500 acres we have here. I'm very happy about, we've taken a more public stance on the difficulties that we've been having with the high nitrates in the rivers. The difficulties that is posed for our staff to deliver the water that, meets EPA standards. It's just gotten harder and harder every year. And this story has needed to be told, I think, for a long time. When we're spending over $1 million a year trying to get nitrates out of the water, we need to talk to the public about that. I mean, because they're bearing the cost of it. So I'm very happy with the way that's been moving along. And I feel communication overall is much better. Communication's better with the board. I feel staff on board are better, and it seems to me what I've heard, the employees generally speaking are happier, so I'm happy.
Sue?
I'm glad Leslie brought up the AFSCME. I had forgotten about that when I was making notes myself, but great point and very successful. I guess I want to compliment our staff because change is never easy.
True.
And you bring in a new leader and, everyone, kind of gets set in their own ways. And I think it's a compliment to Bill as well as to staff that they have managed through this last year as they have. And with the union, the employees, the directors, I just see a real cohesive group here. And so my compliments to all of you, and thank you for embracing a new leader, because I think, I've seen organizations where people don't do that, and it makes it hard on everyone, the board and all the way down. So I think it's as much a compliment to all of you as anyone. But I think we went through a terrific selection process. Kudos to both you, Graham, and Leslie. I have to give both of you credit for sticking to the process. Thank you. And the city of Des Moines issue, I think, was on the Agri-Park, was the first one that we all kind of sat up, I think 30 days into the job, and we said, wow, we selected the right CEO, didn't we? So, and he has continued to navigate and take us through issues like that. So, and then I think about, it's the first time that we have ever tested the agreement that we have with Saylorville under his leadership. So I'm very pleased, and when I met with Bill, I told him the only thing that I'm concerned about, and as I see item number C, he wants to build up his vacation bank. I think he needs to take a little bit of vacation once in a while, and he has a great staff so that he can do it, and because balance in everyone's life is important, Bill. So I had to get that plug in publicly.
I'm confident the staff would appreciate me taking a vacation.
Graham, if I could.
Yes, please.
One thing, and I would like to say, similarly, yes, I appreciate the work you did last year. I watched the video from the hiring process last year, kind of seeing where Bill was and what he had to say at the time. As I looked through and trying to think of my evaluation, I appreciate that, and it's kind of interesting to see, once you get into a job where you thought somebody might else be doing, I could do Yadi or Melina's job, I'm sure of it. It's just that matter of somebody giving me the chance. But that and yeah, the one thing that I know we talked about was vacation time. I think it's important for everybody to take that. We really do intend, you were very important, but we don't want you to be that important that we wouldn't be able to have all the other people backstopping and taking care of that. I know they're good, so that's important for us, and to take the stress off you too. Get on your bike.
And I'll just add that when we set out to hire a new leader, we wanted somebody that was capable of managing the day-to-day operations here and the staff, but we really wanted somebody who could look to the future, think about our vision, our collective vision for Des Moines Water Works, and explore new opportunities are there. And I felt at the time that Bill was a strong candidate for that administrator's position, and I had high hopes when it came to the visioning part of it, and I have to say that he's exceeded those pieces of it. As we look forward to those obstacles that stand in our way at Waterworks, but also those opportunities that we have, Bill is doing great work on that front, and so I would say that, not that the day-to-day thing is easy, because it's not. The day-to-day operations here is a difficult job, but he excels on both of those fronts, and that's a great thing for us, and we're proud to have him. Those obstacles that we faced going forward are not insignificant, whether it's the nitrate issue, whether it's our relationship with the suburbs. We could all make that list. Those are substantial issues, and I think Bill understands as well as anybody that the key here is to do the things that all of us have said up to this point, and that is to continue to concentrate on communication, whether it's communication between board and staff or all of us in the community or what have you. That communication is going to be important, and he understands that. I just want to say that at this point. So Before I go on to what my recommendations are, the thing I'd like you to give some thought to, and you don't have to respond to this at this point, was this process, this evaluation process. We're going to do this again a year from now, and if there's, and obviously things will change between now and then, and so, but give some thought about how we do this. I kind of liked this process this year, where board members had an opportunity to have some time to discuss these things. But if there's something you'd like to change going forward, just keep that in the back of your mind, and we can continue to talk about that, because as a small board, it's very important that not only that we each have our opportunities to have those sessions with the CEO, but also that we communicate well. So I just want to make sure that we continue to do that. So I'll go on to the next item, and one of the things when Bill and I first talked about this anniversary date and the way to approach it, I asked him to think about his contract. I would do the same, and my hope would be that we could make some changes if we needed to the existing contract, with the idea that this wouldn't be as labor-intensive a task in the next couple of years. But that he's been here and had his feet on the ground for a while, that we could do these things. So really, it came down to 5 areas, and the first thing I'm recommending is a one-time bonus in appreciation and recognition of his work. I won't go over those things. You all did a good job. There were a number of items here that I think he went above and beyond when it came to performance. We can talk about the negotiations with the union, and I think the union may echo that. I think that his fairness in his approach to that was great. The difficult pension issue, the sailor bill, all of those things are great things. But so that one-time bonus of $5,000. The next is really came from Bill as well, and that is that going forward, that we tie his increases to those same percentage rates that were offered in the union agreement. And I'm very comfortable with that. I think that's fair. I think it keeps him in lockstep with the employees. So I'm comfortable with that. So that means he'd get a 2.75 raise in 2014 and a 3% raise the following year. The next is fairly simple and straightforward, raising his mileage and smartphones stipends, which are currently $350 a month and $75 a month, to $500 a month and $100 a month. I agree with everything that's been said about his vacation. It's been a tough year. He hasn't taken as many times. He doesn't want to lose those. We agree. I agreed to kind of a one-time. We'll raise those things, and hopefully he'll find that time, and we won't have to discuss that again. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that, and it's all laid out in the amendments you'll see, we wanted to be very clear about 2 things from my standpoint. One, I think we are in a very good situation here, and I wanted Bill to understand that we want him to remain at Waterworks. We want him to remain in this chair, and we also know that he is going to navigate, and we have asked him to do so, some tough issues, whether it is the nitrate issue and some of these other negotiations. And while we all may feel great at this moment, we may not all be on this board forever, and we wanted to be very clear, if a board should take some steps or they would disagree with some of the things he was doing, what those things would be, what good reason could stand for his dismissal, and how that would affect his pay. And I think, thanks to Rick Baum's work, we found some good language there to help redefine that. Nobody should be nervous here. As I say, the real intent here is that we are all on the same page, and that we are proud of the work that's going on. We're proud of the way he handles himself, both behind closed doors and in the public eye. But we just wanted to redefine what those good reasons were, so that we all have a little bit more comfort going forward. So those are my 5 recommendations, and I would entertain a motion. This is all incorporated in what's called the First Amendment to the Employment Agreement, if there was such a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Are there any comments on those, or anything you'd like to add, or things clarified about the amendment to the agreement? Great. Well,
I think,
Mark, you
I
all right?
think we're good, yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask Rick if you could just talk briefly about the interplay on the termination language with respect to where we say serves at the pleasure of the board, but then when we talk about just cause.
Right, there's
So
grounds for
people
termination,
understand that,
just
but-
cause for involuntary termination at the board's request was in the existing agreement. That is not changed by the amendment. The existing agreement had a provision for voluntary termination by Mr. Stowe on 12 months' notice. That's retained, although slightly rewritten to conform to the additional provision. And there's a new provision that allows for resignation for defined good reason. And if there's a resignation for good reason, then Mr. Stowe receives 1 year's severance pay unless he's resigning to take a new position immediately, in which case the severance wouldn't be paid.
That satisfied? Any other question? I'll just add, I appreciate all of the board's work on this. Rick, I appreciate your work on this, and Bill, it's been a great year. Let's go have another one.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Hearing, moving on to the next item. Thank you. The next item is the authorize the contract for the joint East Side Booster Station site grading project. This is a recommended action. I'll allow our CEO to explain this.
And this, again, ties back to the discussion we had about an $80,000 payment for real estate. Now we're moving forward with the site preparation for construction. This one is a little different than some of the public bidding processes that you normally would see. Is you may or may not remember, because we don't run into it very often, if an estimate for a particular purchase or project is less than $100,000, excuse me, under Iowa law, we can use a more informal process to bring it to closure, and that's what happened here. The actual request here is for approval of $110,000, $91.50 for the site improvements, the site grading with Elder Corporation of Pleasant Hill. Sue, I know that you're very sensitive to the single respondent issue. They were the single respondent. As we solicited in process here, our engineering staff, Gary Benjamin and his staff, found a situation realistically where the economy is picking up markedly enough, and this is of a size that's relatively small in the wonderful world of site preparation, that we were only able to find a single respondent. And Elder Corporation is somebody we've worked with in the past. They're a very reputable contractor located in Pleasant Hill, where this work will be happening, so essentially it's working close to their location. Our own view is that if we were to resolicit on this issue in a more formal process, we might well lose them because this is just such a marginally profitable small project that we feel very fortunate to have one. We would always feel better when we have two, Sue, so you have a better sense of competition in the process. But the facts are, as they stand here, we believe that the staff recommendation for essentially $111,000 in payment to Elder is fair and in the best interest of the utility to move the East Side Booster Station forward.
So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a contract for the joint East Side Booster Station site grading with Elder Corporation of Pleasant Hill in the amount of $110,091.50.
I would move that. I would also like to just state I grew up with one of the elders, and I worked with Jay Elder on a couple things. And from my position on the Pleasant Hill Soccer Board, and they were very active with that stuff and active in that community, and I think they would be good.
Great.
Agree with staff.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comment or question on this item?
Only because of your statement, Mark, do you feel like you have a conflict of interest?
I have no
in-
conflict. I just have worked
wanted
with
you
them
to
in the
state-
past and seen what they've done. So.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None. Okay.
And that's why I say it.
There you go. We'll move on to information items. I will I'd like to say, and for those of you who attended the open park, if you will, that was a couple weeks ago. It was a little warm that night, but it was a nice turnout, and I applaud everybody that worked on that. I think it came off well. I think people enjoyed the event. I thought it was a great turnout. I thought there was real excitement there that came out of that. I can tell you that I have had a flurry of emails, phone calls about this project. There are a bunch of people who are very excited about what's going on and want to be involved. Some of you may have received an email or copied on an email that I think originally went to Bill from a gentleman who had some concerns. I've had a number of conversations. I can tell you that while he may still be concerned, he has become a energetic volunteer for the project. He has volunteered a great deal of his time to work with a group of people to write the bylaws. He's an attorney, write the bylaws for a foundation, and is working to do that. I know that I think the current name of the firm, they may have been sold, but it's a Favery firm, is also doing some pro bono work on that front to form this foundation, which is helpful. That firm did the similar work for the Botanical Gardens in forming their agreements and their bylaws and that sort of thing. There's also some back and forth with the zoo to look at how they've done things and how they've operated over the years. I'm saying all of this to say that the best news here is that there are a lot of people who are working hard to make this happen, and that's all good news. So what I have recommended to all of these people that are working on the foundation side is once they get their ducks in a row, the next thing we'll need to do is work with them to figure out what our relationship and our agreements will be with them, and so I'll report back and with Bill and others to figure out how we're going to do that, but it's really great work. So.
And if I may, Graham, I really want to
Absolutely,
underscore Ted Corrigan's leadership. He is our lead on this issue. He's spent hundreds of hours working not only with the public, but technical staffs on the engineering and architectural side and landscape side. There's a lot more work to be done. I know it's a labor of love for Ted, but thanks for loving it, Ted, because the rest of us are glad you're leading that process.
Well, and Ted deserves a great deal of thanks for that, because it's been kind of a committee of one of Ted for a long time, and I think that what I'm beginning to hear and what excites me is that that committee is growing quickly. And it's not, there's been people involved, but there's a lot more out there, and that momentum is what's going to make this project work and come to the fruition that's really good for the community and good for Waterworks. So I report that. I'll just jump down real quick and report on the Botanical Garden. Things are continuing to happen over there. Dramatic things are happening as far as the facility is concerned. I don't know if you've been there or been by it, but it's really remarkable. You can get in the facility now. Of course, the grand opening will be next summer, but they continue to do great work over there and continue to raise money too. So they have what I find to be a very young and energetic staff now. They're fully staffed as of last month when they hired their development director, and I think great things are going to happen there. So that being said, Finance and Audit Committee, you have?
Yes, first of all, big thanks to Amy. One of the things that we had on our Finance Committee meeting was that we saw this video. It was a 5-minute video, our water rates, where does our money go? And Pat, could I ask you to send out that link to all of the board members? I know it's on the DMU YouTube site, but if you haven't had a chance to see it, or I want to see it again, it's really, really good. And I think it's what we've been asking for, and so Amy, thank you for sharing that with us.
I agree.
Laura
I thought that was really well done.
was very involved, I know, so great job to both of you. Continued to work on the budget. We know that we're going to be seeing next month a budget approximately 5% more than what we had. We talked a lot about pumpage rates, and we have agreed to, as a committee, and I want to bring this to the board, look at 17.1 billion gallons. That's up from 16.8. Bill has assured us that he feels very comfortable with those numbers. And then we started looking at water rates, which ties exactly to the budget, as we know. And overall, it's just a very good meeting. I can't think of anything else other than the action we've already taken on the $180,000 error that we will speak of no more.
We will speak of that more.
Been learned forever.
Planning committee, Mark, I don't know if you have anything to add. Dave is.
I don't have too much to add. I think that just for the board's interest, that what we have talked about are some things that are going to be coming up. The issue of the low income assistance was good. I appreciate the presentation, very well done in helping to understand. There are a wide variety of people who are trying to help people in need, and oftentimes those efforts are not coordinated well. I think it's diplomatic to say that. And oftentimes they're inadequate, and it puts people in a jam, both those who are trying to do something and those who need it. So I appreciate the effort to try to make sure that we are doing what we can and have it make sense. That was helpful. The Bean Street and Kim report, I think you guys know probably enough about what we have there. The security request for proposal was something that we talked about that's an issue, and obviously, we see a lot of things in public safety issues and just our private security here, that what's important and how much is necessary. So that was the issue we discussed, and a lot of that's addressed by the cameras, the fences, and the other stuff, but we've got other needs that need to be addressed. Arming folks here in some situations is necessary, and that's the issue is, what kind of a training level do we need, and what do we want to make sure that, we also want to make sure that the folks that we have here are not you get what you pay for. So if you inadequately hire security, they might be the issue that we don't want, and there's some liability issues and other things from that. I had the opportunity to talk to a gentleman in the parking lot as I was leaving about some of the security, and just took that upon myself to see what kinds of things we have here, and just kind of what I expected, and generally I think that's good. Part of the park planning, I think, is just leading in, we talked about that. Having a number of people in an area on a trail or otherwise really helps with security, because you got so many people watching out that they feel an ownership and a responsibility for that area that they love. So those are good things that we can do, and it helps add to that security. And just with that, with the park event, I want to echo what everybody else said. I appreciate, got to talk to Ted and Scott afterwards, and it was a fantastic event. I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. It really helped to get people to understand what we were doing, that we have not decided this, and this is going to happen, and the funding issues and the other things. I saw people who weren't there that were getting information from others. It's kind of generated some of that community discussion that we want. So appreciate all the guys, all that you did, and all the staff did. And it was a good event. Hope Pat found her keys. So, good.
Great, thank you. We have the CEO and general manager's comment and a number of other informational items, if you'd like to address those.
Absolutely, if I can, in the form of comments first, let me thank the four of you, and David and Abstentia, for your support over the last year. It really is an honor and a privilege to work here. I mean that sincerely for you, that is the five of you, for Des Moines residents, for all of our customers, including our suburban customers. Extraordinarily important to our future, in my view. We've got a lot of problems in front of us, as we all know, and again, appreciate your support. I have to say that I can't think of a better staff, a staff that I could be more proud of than the Des Moines Waterworks staff, and a history of doing this kind of work since right after the Civil War. So an extraordinary group of people. The technologies have changed markedly, I'm confident, since the Civil War. but it's a
Why do you keep looking at Gary when you say
Gary, that was a misread of my eye contact. I want you to know. Now, Fontanini I may have looked at, but not you. It is a great staff, and it's a real pleasure to work here. Thank you. A couple of comments. First, it's probably obvious to each of you, but our water consumption is down significantly with cooler temperatures and a little rain. I think Mike tells me we're consistently about the 50 million gallons a day sales and production right now. So that's down fairly significantly from where we were a few weeks ago, but still within a range that we view as a good one for us from a business planning standpoint. We have been involved in 3 new hires, and typically I don't report a lot to you about the hiring process because, again, you hire me and I hire Waterworks employees generally, but we have 3 folks that I think are important from a strategic standpoint that you're aware of. Doug Garnett is our new HR manager. He's going to work with Ron Smith, our HR director, for the next several months in transition. Doug comes to us from the city of Ames most immediately, has about 18 years of public sector work for the city of Ames and then for Polk County before that, lives right in this neighborhood and commuted to Ames on a daily basis. So I'm confident that the location is a good one for Doug also. Joining us also is a gentleman named Casey Reagan in our safety role. We are finding that our safety incidence rates, our injuries, are increasingly a concern for us in managing this organization. We're looking for some additional expertise. Casey joins us from the wind generation business, worked for Siemens, an international, multinational company, I should say, for a number of years, and then more recently for a Virginia-based provider of wind energy, but has some unique perspectives because of that. A name that some of you will be familiar with is our 3rd hire that is really a promotion. Jim Cockerham, who was president of the chapter for a number of years, has moved into a CPS, that is a non-exempt, non-bargaining unit position in safety also. Jim will be helping us with field audits and with field leadership among our bargaining unit folks in particular. So 3 additions to our asset base that are really important, I think, as we move forward. Safety will be an increasing area of focus and concern for me. Again, I believe that we can be a far safer workplace and protecting our workforce than we have in the past, and we will work very hard at that with 2 significant assets there between Jim and Casey. Look forward to that. I believe that's all that I wanted to touch on other than the memos that you have on both rates and budget. Let me start with 4C on budget, and Peggy, you're certainly welcome to add anything you want on this issue. Also, our budget process is coming to closure now as we finalize our budget that will be provided to you for approval in November.
Correct.
Thank you. I always find that to be tricky. But we set a date of hearing in October at the same meeting that we will be making a recommendation asking for approval of rates. Now, the rate recommendations that we will be bringing to you for approval involve a 5% increase for Des Moines ratepayers and a 4% increase for our wholesale suburban customers. Again, our view is that looking at cost of service and experience, that we find that to be the most acceptable package in moving forward. We had significant discussions at the finance and audit level about this. We have met with many of our wholesale customers and explained to them where we were likely to recommend as staff. We are finding general support from our suburban customers for your view of rates that aren't punitive towards our suburban customers. I think that your actions here would very clearly send a message of fairness to Des Moines residents and to our suburban residents on how the rate structure would work in this circumstance. So I wanted to provide you that feedback, that we're getting generally positive or at least neutral responses back from many of the suburban customers. The largest ones, as you know, are essentially Ankeny and Urbandale are certainly our largest two, but we have a smattering of some other very significant customers out there. But both Ankeny and Urbandale have been generally supportive. I don't know if either one of you want to talk about budgets or rates any further than that? Or feedback you've been getting? No, that's enough. They're saying they want to get out of here. I believe the other items we have really require no comment that I can offer without your questions. They're the usual things that are in your board packet. But when you're ready, Graham, I'd be happy to make a motion or a request for this group to make a motion to go into closed session to talk about future litigation strategies.
Yeah, and let me talk about that for a moment. It says on the agenda here that we would likely come back to an open session and there might be an authorization for litigation. It's not expected there'll be such a request for authorization for litigation. We would obviously go into closed session as permitted by law, and we would come out to adjourn the meeting. But for those of you who are around, we don't anticipate any action. As it says here, and I'll just read it, the CEO and general manager and council are requesting a closed session under section 21.51C of the Code of Iowa to discuss strategy with counsel in matter where litigation is imminent to avoid disclosure likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of Des Moines Water Works, and in particular to discuss strategy for litigation to address severe raw water quality issues confronting the water works. So if there is a motion to that effect, I would entertain it.
So moved.
Is it our second?
Second?
Is this a roll call vote? I can't remember.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Hubbard,
Yes.
Graham Gillette,
Yes.
Leslie Gearhart,
Yep.
Mark Wallace.
Aye.
So as I said, we'll go into this closed session. We will come back out and adjourn the meeting, but we don't expect any action at that time.
They can buy you a car.
Good rate.
Are you ready?
Answers.
All right, so that concludes our closed session for September the 24th. We don't have any other business to attend to unless there's anything anyone would like to add at this point. So our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.